Fool's Day.
I
Huh.
just
Yeah.
yeah, I just made it for every month. First of every month.
March Fool's Day,
I
April
wonder where
Fool's
that
Day,
came
May
from.
Fool's
Does
Day.
anybody know where that came from, the
I
April
have
thing?
no clue.
I mean, I could
Mm-mm.
look it up, but probably not going to.
Yeah.
Yeah,
We'll
exactly.
ask ChatGPT
Anyone
later.
watching, let us know down in the comments what
If
what
you
you've
know.
prompted ChatGPT with, and it's told you April Fool's Day means.
Yeah. There's nobody watching yet, I don't think.
Okay,
We need
that's
to
a
give it a
shame. They're
minute.
lost. They're
People are
lost.
slow. It's early. Anyway,
Yeah.
how you guys doing this week? What have you been up to? I have some exciting news, which I'm going to share with you live
Go
because
ahead.
I
Oh
was going to
goodness.
share with you before we jumped on the
But
call,
we
but
ran
I'll
out of
share with
time.
you. We
But
ran
you
out of time, so
forgot.
I'm going to share it with you live so everybody gets it all at the same
So
time.
we can
But
get like
anyway,
the live unboxing reaction.
Oh,
yeah,
Oh
oh
my
like,
man.
God.
can make a thumbnail out of it.
Yeah, exactly.
Dude, those videos crack me.
Oh.
Anyway, how you guys doing? What have you been up to this week?
Let's see. This week I
Coding?
was banging out some more of the burp suite.
That sentence could have gone in a really bad direction.
Him and
Yeah.
Burbsy, you know how it
Keep
goes.
it a
Yeah,
PG. Keep it a PG.
just
Banging out some
banging
more
the
of the
burp,
burp
you
suite
know?
web security academy. And
Nice.
I'm waiting for this AI uh red teaming course I start next week. So just kind of in
Sweet.
like a holding pattern.
Nice.
Sweet.
That's gonna
That's
be cool
cool.
though.
Hmm.
Yeah. I've been working on a project. I've been building thing me and Randy were talking about before, an advice thing with AI. So it's coming along pretty good. I got the front end pretty much worked out. I'm still working on it. Because I did one
Nice.
of the common things that we're going to talk about today that you shouldn't do because I
Oh,
was just coding
sweet.
for myself for fun. So
Nice. Yeah, I was gonna ask. I didn't catch that because I got on right as you were
I'll show you
turning off your
I'll show
share, but
you
you can show me
later.
later.
Yeah.
But yeah, yeah. So I mean, I guess we'll get into it. Um,
Hang on,
for,
let me get my surprise reaction ready.
like for my surprise. Well, I'll tell
Yeah.
you. Okay, so this week,
I can't believe how much
I really
unboxing I
there's
do these
two
days.
big things. The surprise I'll tell you in a second, but what I did this week, besides just generally like working on code noob stuff, is I started a vanilla HTML, CSS, and JavaScript project. Would you believe that? Um,
Tons of
Is that
fun.
good
it's
enough?
not for production or anything. It's for like more content for people who are noobs in
Yes,
here, you
it
know, all
is.
these code noobs. Um, so basically I'm building a portfolio site, but it's really cool. It's sort of like a cube, like a Rubik's cube, and every time you click on a link, it spins the cube to a different face, and then you see the content on that face. It's pretty cool. So,
Sweet.
yeah,
That's
surprise
cool.
reaction or jazz hands.
Yeah, I saw that.
Oh.
Yeah.
Uh,
So that's pretty cool. It's coming along. I got like most of it done. So
Yo, it's
that'll
funny.
be
When
some
you
new
go
content coming soon.
back to vanilla to work in it, it's
Oh
so
my God, it's
annoying,
so
isn't it?
frustrating. It's
Because
like,
it's funny how like much you take for granted with the frameworks and stuff, how easy it gets to develop because you don't have to go back and forth between all this crap and like just entering the CSS is so much more annoying. Dude,
oh dude, it's
honestly, it's
unbelievable. Not to mention that you have to always have three files open and constantly switch between them, and it's so annoying. Like,
yeah, because you
man,
can't
I'm
do
so
anything.
thank React and React and Next and all
Oh,
this good
dude,
stuff.
and you know
Like,
what's funny too is even
wow.
just with vanilla JavaScript, dude, just interacting with the DOM takes like 20 times the amount of code because you have to
Yeah, it's
identify
crazy.
everything and grab it and
Yeah.
do all, yeah, it's really
Yeah.
funny.
So it's been a mission, but it's looking good. So I'm
Nice.
pretty psyched about that. So on to the exciting news. So a few weeks ago, I was looking for conferences and meetup groups and like all these things coding related that I could do in my area. And unfortunately, there's not like I've really looked hard and there's not any any coding groups of substance. They're all just like promotional sort of things.
That's
So
it, dude. That's a problem I found. Like that's I found that one good one by me, but a lot of them are
yeah,
just like garbage.
they're like you know, basically it's just like entryway into selling you something is what
Yeah.
most of them tend to be. So anyway, so after I gave up on groups, I decided I'm going to look for conferences. So I found a conference called React Miami, which is in April. So
Nice.
it's next
Oh, that's
month,
cool.
17th and 18th of April. And I wanted to go and I figured, you know, from my experience, one of the best ways to get sort of like really good connections in the industry, if you want to, is to go like volunteer and do something,
Oh
right?
yeah.
So like give up some of your time but you get to meet the people who like really run this stuff. So anyway, so I applied to volunteer at React Miami, and this week I got approved. So that's the
Nice, dude.
exciting news.
That is
Hey,
awesome. That
congratulations.
will
Yeah,
get you
pretty
so
cool.
many good
Oh,
So
jazz
connections, dude.
hands. Jazz
That is
hands.
awesome. That's really
so
cool.
yeah, so I don't know like what I'm gonna be doing. They didn't tell me yet, but I got a free ticket, which
Hey,
is pretty
that's
sweet. It's a
that's a
$550 ticket to
yeah,
go to the
that's awesome.
conference.
You'll be cleaning the
And
toilets.
nah, I'll probably be like taking tickets or something. I mean, if I'm cleaning toilets,
You know,
whatever.
usually no, actually, you know, it's funny. I mean, I
Pretty
remember
sure they have somebody to do that though.
Yeah.
it's funny, dude. I did a I actually when I was in grad school, I did a bunch of conferences for philosophy. But it's funny because when you volunteer, a lot of what you'll I mean, a lot of what we had to do was just like it was just checking people in and stuff.
That's all it's probably gonna be, yeah.
And that's probably what you're gonna do too. But it's
Or
cool
like pointing
because
them in a direction. Like
yeah, or
the
like
conference is that way.
changing signs or something. If something
Yeah.
changes, but like you'll get to at least you'll get to do
But
everything. That's awesome, and you'll meet all the
yeah,
people that run it and all, and like yeah, it's good
yeah,
connections.
exactly.
Mhm.
Like you get connections with the people who run it. You feel like you're sort of on the inside. You get special privilege a little bit. So that's always a good way. And on top of that, you get a free ticket. So if you guys are like, I'd love to go to a coding conference, but I don't have the money, there you go. There's your answer. Volunteer.
That's
And
a
you get a
great
free
idea.
ticket. You get the inside scoop. You get to meet all the people who run the conference. I mean, there's not really anything better than that. Like,
Yeah,
and
there's not.
what's funny is, people pay $550 just to attend, uh, and they don't get anything close to the access that you would as a volunteer. So yeah, you have to work a little bit, but it's worth it.
You're a
Um,
volunteer. I mean, it's not like they're going to
yeah,
cut your pay.
right, exactly. And it's not like they're gonna ask you to do something. They're not gonna be like, "Hey, you see that sign way up there? We need you to climb up the wall and like pull
Yeah,
the sign down." They're gonna be like, "No,
Yeah.
can you just like open the door for every person that comes in?" Like, you can't ask a volunteer to do very,
That's
very
cool.
much stuff. So
Congrats, dude.
yeah, so
that's
pretty
awesome,
psyched
dude.
about that. So
That'd be really
April
cool.
17th and 18th. And like while I'm announcing it, if anybody is in the South Florida area or wants to attend a conference, wants to hang out, I'll be there. So feel free to hit me up on Facebook and we'll hang out. So,
Sweet.
Yeah,
and you get to
that's
enjoy
awesome.
beautiful Miami because I mean, there's no better place than Miami in April. It's beautiful.
Bingo.
So, with that, we can get into today's episode. Um, yeah.
Yeah, so we're doing 10 common coding mistakes new
Yeah.
developers are making,
So,
how to avoid them.
yeah. So today we wanted to talk about 10 common coding mistakes for new developers. We've gone through them. Everyone else has gone through them. These are things that you will probably come across at some time. Um,
I actually want to talk
so
about the first one
yeah.
because I was laughing because I did that. I do still do this sometimes, but we talk about this all the time too. And this is a huge mistake, which is not planning before you code. And
Yeah.
like, we all know it's so much easier when you have a plan because your coding just moves so much faster and all. And like, if you code blind, like, I don't know, when you guys were starting out, we all did this a lot, right? You just start
You just
coding
made
and it
me think
goes,
of somebody with like a blindfold on, like
yeah.
typing at their keyboard.
But it's kind of like it goes nowhere, right? Because you end up every time you make a
Yeah.
change or you decide on a design change, even just the front end takes forever. But I was laughing because I'm working on like just a fun project, a passion project, and I totally started this way. Like I had a very vague idea, but I was like,
Yeah.
I'm just gonna start coding because I just felt like coding. And like I noticed like I've already had to change so many things because like as your design modifies, you have to go back and keep editing.
Yep.
So it's like, yeah, there is a sense in which it wastes a lot of time. And especially when
I
you're new, I think it can be a real detriment to moving forward.
Yeah, I did that too this week because I hadn't coded for a little bit because I just been working on like switching us over to a new platform. And so this week I was like, I really just want to code. Like I was itching to code. So I'm like, I'm just gonna build something. And I just started, which I agree, it's not a great strategy. And for two reasons also, like one is just that you inevitably will change design frequently. And I kind of want
Oh
to say
yeah.
that. So like part of your planning should be planning the design because that's what probably 90% of my wasted time is just like, oh, that border is a little thinner than I want it or a little thicker than I want it. And then you just tweak things over and over and over, which is good, but you can just design that in like
I was gonna
some
say,
other
usually, yeah,
thing
usually
first.
if I plan, usually when I'm actually doing a project like the right way, I'll plan the design, do
Hmm.
the front end, and then you have an idea, and then you kind of plan the back end after that.
Yeah.
because then you
Yeah.
have an idea of what you actually want to include, what everything's going to do, and that makes it a lot easier to work that way.
Yeah.
I
Yeah,
have,
man.
even though we have a list of 10 things on here, I do have a number 0 for the list.
I
Ah,
And
have
that's,
I've
and
created like 20 lists by now,
okay,
so we got
good.
plenty
So
of
there's more than,
content.
so there's more than 10
There's
things
more
that
than
new
10.
developers can screw up. I would say that like one of the beginning things that new developers screw up is they believe they don't have what it takes,
yeah.
or they
Yeah.
need to be something special to be a developer, or they need to get
Yeah.
to some thing to where they can build their own projects.
Yeah.
And I that can kind of hold you back for a long time if you
You know,
believe you need to be something special
You know what's
before you
funny?
just get started.
You know all those stories like the young kids who get started and like they're building up doing it. And I think actually I was thinking about that the other day, and it's funny because I think when you're young you don't have those hangups usually. You don't have those limitations because you haven't
Because
yeah.
absorbed
everybody
all this
tells you
crap from
you can
society.
do whatever you
Yeah.
want. If you want to be a president, if you want to be an
Well, I
astronaut,
think
you
that's
can
the
do whatever you want.
I think that's it though,
And
right? Because if a kid gets into coding, like, you have this freedom of your mindset to kind of just go that I think as adults, it gets in the way so much because we all like kind of like are so negative on ourselves and limit ourselves.
David Campbell, I love your comment. This was me until I joined the group. Yeah.
Yeah.
I have a slightly different perspective on that. And it's only because have kids and I'm like around them fairly frequently. I think kids definitely have their insecurities,
Yeah.
but so like one of the things that I see frequently though with kids is that they assume that, and this is the same with adults, is they assume that if you're good at something, you were born with it, right? Like we just
Yeah, that other
assume that
assumption's
like
terrible. Yeah.
yeah, like the best of something just had some natural ability that they were born with. And the reality is like that's not true at all. And I think
But
what
that's
you
what
were
everybody's told
explaining,
too all the time.
yeah,
That's the problem.
yeah. And what you were explaining, where like they don't have these barriers, I think it's not so much about the barriers, actually. I think it's something else. I think it's actually that kids have a lot of curiosity, right? They're curious
Yeah.
about the world. And I think the best developers, speaking specifically about this industry, but outside of this industry, the best at anything are the people not who want success the most, but the people who are most curious. Like I think about the best developers who ever existed. I'm talking about like Mark Zuckerberg, um, Linus Torvald, or however you say his name. Like
I don't know
developers
how
that
to
are
say
like
his name either.
notorious, Elon Musk, like these people didn't do this because they're like, I'm going to be a multi-billionaire one day. They did it because they were curious and like tinkering with stuff and playing with things, right? Like you think about Steve Jobs and um, all the tech industry leaders that we have today, they were spawned out of curiosity. At least that's my take on it. I think, there's definitely holdups where we see like we're not good enough to do things, but
But I
yeah,
think that's the
that's a
problem for
tough
most
one.
people though, is like getting out of there because it's about your motivation, right? And sticking with it. I
Yeah.
think that is a really good one though to bring up is that thinking everybody can do it. It's just a matter of time and commitment.
Yeah, motivation factors matter. Yep, Anthony. Correct. All right, I got some other ones. Um, I mean, we'll go off that list. So we have like all these. At least I have like 6 lists open. So I'm just looking through them of things that
Oh,
I've
I was thinking
noticed.
actually,
so joke's on you guys, it's actually 60 common mistakes of new
Yeah,
well, no,
developers.
I was thinking of another one too, and this actually comes from
suckers.
the book Clean Code that we all listen to too, I think.
Yeah.
Another big one I think too is like especially when you're starting out is naming really bad. Like poor
Oh my
naming for
God. Yeah.
your variables and for your
Yeah.
functions and stuff so that they
My
don't make
var 1, my
yeah,
var 2,
exactly,
my
right?
var 3.
And we
Yeah.
all did that. I know starting out, like I did that too, like where you just like a variable's X, one's like XX or something stupid. And like you don't have, when you go back to read that code, it's unlegible because nothing
Yeah.
makes sense. Nothing tells you what it's doing. And that was one of the coolest things in that book, I think, that he spent a lot of time on was this idea that, your function should have a name that says exactly, you don't need a comment to explain it. It should say what it does
Yeah.
in the name.
Well, I mean that to me, I remember when Randall said that, and because I hadn't read that part yet, but Randall had mentioned that, and that really like stuck to me because when basically you were saying like anytime you write a code or write a comment, that means that your code is bad. Basically, it sucks. Like
Yeah.
you shouldn't have to explain your code to somebody.
Which is kind of opposite to everything you're taught as a beginner coder. They're like,
Yeah,
comment
it's
everyid you
Well,
write.
yeah,
right.
And
that's what
it's
they
just
said
like,
And
in boot camp, right? They said comment,
yeah.
like we had more comments than we had code. It
yeah,
was
Hmm.
and
insane.
I think that's like it's one of those things where like the reason that you hear that so much is because people know that junior developers aren't that good and they need to comment their code, but it's also like a handicap, right? Because it's not forcing you to do the right thing, which the right thing to do is make your code legible to the point where people can understand what's happening without comments. That's the idea. It's like I
Yeah.
should be able to read your function name and know what your function does, not like my func2, right? It should be like like should describe exactly what it does. And so yeah, I think you know, I don't know.
But
I
I
think
think no,
that's definitely
it's one that can make it really
something to
hard to
work
go
on.
back through and refactor your code too, though,
Yeah.
because it's like the readability becomes like nothing.
Yeah, I have one that I think is like huge. Like I think this is like way overdone in for junior developers, and that is copy pasting code without understanding it, right?
Yeah.
That is one that I think every developer does, and it comes out of, you know, just frustration, tiredness, uh, not wanting to
But
type. But I think,
also wanting to get to the endpoint
right.
faster than
Yeah.
naturally will occur.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like just wanting to complete the tutorial, right? Instead of
Because then you'll be a developer and then you can get
right.
6 figures.
And this is
Yeah.
something again that I think is very common in all education is we're so focused on the end goal. It's like, oh, we're studying for the test or we're, you know, getting good grades so we can go to this school, right? It's not like I'm doing this because I'm curious and want to learn. Like, which is so bizarre to me that all of our institutions focus us not on how much are you learning, but like how good of a can you show on a test, right? Which
Well, we
usually,
focus on we focus on the product, not on or
right.
the results, not on getting there, right? And not on what
Yeah.
needs to get there.
And so I think that carries over into coding where people just copy and paste to get through with it, be able to put it on their portfolio or whatever. But the goal here is not to just have a portfolio with hundreds of projects on it. The goal is to really understand what you did in those projects. So
Well, there's like the paradoxical story of
Did you
the
see Bryce's comment? Sorry.
yeah.
oh no, I missed this one.
He said
Bryce
like code is the
Bryce is an
programming
expert
language of
developer in the
ChatGPT.
language of Chat GPT.
Yeah, exactly.
That's great.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Uh, but like trying to become a coder is kind of the paradox of trying to learn anything, where the quicker you try and learn it, the longer it's going to take you.
Hmm.
So it's like if you just go with the flow and do what you can, the best you can do every day, that's probably the fastest that you're going to learn it. If you try and learn faster and take shortcuts and all this type of stuff, you're going to miss out on a whole bunch of stuff of the learning process that's going to make your entire learning process a lot longer.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, I agree
I
with
want to
that.
know before we go further, because I know there's a bunch of people in the comments and we appreciate your comments. I want to know what you guys think. Like, what is your biggest mistake that you made as a junior developer? Because I know like a lot of these are probably going to relate to everyone, but I want to know, I'm sure everybody has like their one biggest mistake that they ever made. And I'm curious what you guys have. So throw in the comments if you
I
have
would
them.
also add, I'll add another one too while we're waiting
Yeah.
and see people. I think, you mentioned like copying and pasting code, and I think that's related to this, which is, not working on your own projects early enough.
Yeah.
Like getting in that tutorial hell, kind of just doing stuff because like it's fun to produce stuff and to make it easy. And
Yeah.
doing like a real project's really hard when you first start out. It is. It's demanding, but you get so much out of that you don't get from doing tutorials
Yeah.
and stuff because there's this
Well,
fake it's already done.
yeah,
You're doing something that's completed.
it's funny, and I'm sure you guys have heard this a lot. I know I have. We hear it a lot in the group, especially with people who are new inside the incubator. Is this sentence, which is awesome. I totally understand what you coded. I just couldn't reproduce that on my own. Like I wouldn't be able to write that, but I understand what you wrote. And I think that comes a little bit from that is
Yeah.
you get stuck in this loop of being in tutorial hell where you're constantly watching somebody else code for you and just going, yeah, that makes sense. Yeah, that makes sense. But you're not doing the other side of that, which is actually where the logic happens, right? You're just following somebody and saying, yeah, I can understand that. Yeah. It's sort of like the difference between reading a book and writing a book, right? Just because you read a book doesn't mean you're an author,
Yeah,
right?
well, no,
And so
exactly, right?
in order to become an author, you have to practice writing. And it's the same thing with coding. You want to author some code, you got to right. You know,
No,
like you can't just read other people's code all the time and expect that you're going to understand how to actually produce it. So
you need that muscle memory, and it also teaches you, doing projects on your own teaches you the whole process too of how to like put this together. It teaches you also learn like why planning matters and stuff. Like all that stuff comes
yeah,
through. Anthony made it go in too. He said, not taking the time to fully understand all of the tools I'm using at that moment. Once you start the project, it gets messy. He says it started over like
yeah,
6 times. That happens too, because
yeah,
also sometimes, especially when you're new, sometimes you choose the wrong things and you have to go back and choose
yeah.
something else that works
I
better. But
I uh, I think this is an important one too, and I think this is something that I actually accidentally didn't make a mistake on, but I think it's worthwhile noting is when you're a junior developer, it's very tempting to learn every technology there is out there. Like learn Next, learn React, learn this tool and that tool. And like there's a million tech tools out there that do different things and libraries and
or do the
frameworks
same thing.
and yeah,
Like,
many of them do the same thing. And it's very tempting to be like, "Ooh, that's a new one. Let me learn that. Let me learn that." And that actually I think detracts because like what Anthony was saying is like you have all these tools and you don't fully like have a deep knowledge of them. And most of the time you don't actually need like most of the tooling that you have. Like most websites are very simple. So yeah, I think that's something to consider is like focus on just a small tech stack to start
well, the
because
other
it
thing
all
too is,
translates too,
well,
you
that's
know?
the other thing too is like a lot of these, like if you look at the tech stacks of a lot of these big companies, like a lot of
Yeah,
that stuff you don't need when you're doing an MVP, even of a web
right.
app. Like that stuff that can come later that you can add on for sure, but it's not necessary at the outset. And I think that that is a really good one. I would also
Yeah.
too add like a big one I think for a lot of people that I see all the time too is not reading documentation and learning how to read documentation
Yeah.
is
That's
huge.
huge. I'm going to throw something in with that because I think this is important and it's sort of along the same line. So we can talk about both of these. Not reading documentation and understanding how to read documentation, and also not reading errors and understanding
Yeah,
how to
oh
read
God,
errors.
yeah.
Like
Dude.
that should be if you're brand new to development, that should be one of the first things that you focus on because understanding how to read and properly understand what's going on with an error will save you like hours and hours and hours of time because you will just be looking all over for something that
It
most
tells
of
you
the
right
time
where it
errors tell
is.
you
Yeah.
exactly where it is.
What
So
line of code, what document,
yeah,
everything. Yeah.
and understanding what different errors mean, right? Because there are different types of errors, and if you have like a reference error and then you're looking for I don't know some other type of error,
A
like you're
type
just gonna be
error.
yeah, like you're gonna be there forever. So
Yeah.
Yeah. I
understanding
want
errors I think is very important
David
and
commented.
documentation.
Yeah, no, they're huge and they make it a lot easier for you too to understand the tech that you're using. Um,
Yeah,
David Campbell said he agrees with Anthony. He said I have always had an issue adding too many packages. I think this is also because a lot, you
yeah,
hear over and over again like don't reinvent the wheel, don't reinvent the wheel.
yeah,
And yes, that is true, but you can also way overdo it with dependencies to where your
yeah,
project's bogged down by other people's code. It's going to be slower, it's going to be larger. And I think it's also understanding that like balance of like yeah, I'm not going to reinvent off, but I don't necessarily need this simple thing that's a whole package of stuff that I'm using one component
yeah.
out of. I can build one
Well,
component, right? Like,
I think some of where that comes up too is that as a junior developer, we're not usually too concerned with scaling, right?
yeah.
With like what happens to my application when I have 100,000 concurrent users, like what is going to happen then? And so you can get away with some of that stuff when you're not worried about scaling. You can have big bloaty packages and like, but once you get to the point where, you know, you're sending 100 megabyte, thousand, whatever images to the front end every
Yeah.
single time somebody accesses your homepage, that's not going to scale, right? So you have to start thinking about those things. So yeah, um, yeah. I mean, I
And a
think
lot of these are things you just learn too as you go because you
sure,
start to realize them, I think. But it's good if you can know them
yeah,
early, it can help a lot. Yeah.
yeah. I have another one here, and I think this one's pretty good. Is not using version control early.
Yeah.
Um, I know this is something that we get all our incubator members into using GitHub as soon as they join. But there's two main reasons for that. Really, there's a lot of reasons to use version control, but I think there's a couple. Number one is you need to store your code somewhere that's safe. Like if your computer breaks or whatever happens to it, at least your code is stored somewhere.
And it's
Number
easy to
two
get,
is,
yeah, and retrieve. Yeah.
yeah, number two is like your GitHub is basically your developer portfolio. Like most people are going to ask for your GitHub if they want to hire you, especially if it's like a company. If it's like a, you're doing a one-off web design for a local company, they don't care. But if you want to get hired by somebody, you got to have a GitHub. Um, and really three is like every developer uses it and it's a little bit complicated, so you might want to get used to it as soon as possible.
Well, that's the other
Right?
thing,
And
right?
it's good
Because
to build those habits.
collaborating with anyone, you're going to need to use GitHub.
Yeah.
And it's very rare that anybody uses anything else, but if they do, it's going to be somewhat similar, so you'll be able to figure it out, right?
Yeah.
Push.
I love Bryce.
Yeah.
He's like, I can't even get 5 users, 100K users is not on my mind.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I have
I mean,
I have another one too that I think
yeah.
is also important that is a tough one though, which is, you know, not asking for help early enough when you're working on stuff.
Yeah.
And, getting feeling like, you can't do it or it's impossible because you just didn't ask somebody. And that could be going
Yeah.
online, it could be using AI, it could be talking to somebody else, but like, asking somebody, actually there was the one thing I actually really liked from our boot camp, which was that 20-minute rule, right? Like
Yes,
when you're
that's
first
actually
learning,
very good.
if you get stuck, try to solve it for 20 minutes. If you can't figure it out after 20 minutes, then seek out help. But the thing is, when you get that help, like especially like that's why I like ChatGPT so much, you can ask it to explain everything to you very carefully, like you're 5 years old, and get a very clear explanation of all of it.
Yeah. Yo, congrats, Anthony, on
Hey, that's
the
awesome, man. Nice.
350 or so users. Pretty
That's
sweet.
awesome.
Um, I had two more that are sort of we can lump them together. So one is not mastering the basics in terms of like HTML, CSS, and JavaScript. And the other is not having just a foundational understanding of like how the web works, right? I think that's actually like
Actually, that's a good one.
one
The
of the
larger
most,
concepts. Yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
like not you don't have to understand the syntax, but what I mean is understanding a general understanding of like what's happening when somebody visits a website. Like when you type in facebook.com, what happens behind the scene? Because I think a lot of junior developers just sort of glance over that. And then there's a lot of confusion when you're actually writing the code to do those things of like, why are we doing this? And if they understood a little bit more about what's actually happening, like when you type in facebook.com, a DNS server is being accessed, an IP address is being accessed, a server is being accessed, some files are being sent over to your computer, a DOM is being made, like rendered, like all these things, right? If you don't understand that, it's sort of like a magic box, right? And then you're just trying to code into a magic box. So yeah,
Well,
like Bryce
that's the
said,
other thing
it's
too.
magic.
It is. Well, no, that's the other thing I noticed. Like for myself, like that was a big turning point for me and my own growth was like when I started to realize like how all these things connected and there's larger concepts.
Yeah.
Because once you understand that, you can figure out how to make it all work. That's just a
Yeah.
matter of figuring out the syntax or the specific language you need, whatever. But yeah,
All right.
Going along those same lines,
Yeah.
not being able to like touch type. So if you're still like a finger, you
Mm,
still have to look at the
I type like
keyboard
this.
or anything. Yeah,
yeah,
exactly. I pretend I have little chicken nuggets for fingers and just like, and I'm
just
in my
smash
mom's
things.
basement.
I just
Yeah,
elbow the
and
keyboard till I get what
yeah,
I want.
yep, yeah. But it makes everything take so much longer if you can't just type
Yeah.
quickly.
Well, with that, I think having a good VS Code setup is essential too. Like having some essential extensions in there and like having your setup, maybe changing the theme so it's visually more appealing for you. Simple things, even just your desk setup, I think matters a lot. If you're like trying to code in a very uncomfortable desk, or I don't know if you guys have ever tried to code on a Spirit airline flight, but that's nearly impossible. It's really tough to do. So,
Because you can
uh,
barely fit in the seat
you're
yourself.
like,
Good luck
Yeah.
like I
fitting them.
literally have typed like this before. Oh man.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Anthony, without too many extensions, because that can also, and some of them are also bad, I
Yeah.
think. Like
Too
some of
many.
the
Yeah.
the code
Just the
completion ones are
essentials.
really bad, like for new developers, because it gives you too
Yeah.
many, you're not learning, you're just kind of like,
I would I would recommend really the only extensions for like new developers that you may need is like live server so you can spin up a local server. Um, what else?
some of the
Security
basic like
Prettier,
machine.
I think is a really good one to
prettier is
have.
good. Some of the
Uh,
basic like Microsoft JavaScript ones and stuff that just include some like, debugging
yeah,
readability, that kind of
right.
stuff. But yeah, nothing like,
Any of the IntelliSense extensions, if you're using particular tools, like IntelliSense is basically just gives you sort of more information and hints about your code as you're coding it. Um, but yeah, I mean, I think honestly, to me, Prettier is one of the most essential
it makes it
extensions
readable.
for new developers because
Yeah.
you start to see your code in a consistent way, and it actually helps you learn debugging faster. Um, my school didn't teach typing. I'm a self-taught typer. Yeah. Uh, I don't know if you guys remember the little felt like things that you would put over the keyboard and they would do typing tests. Yeah, it was fun.
Mavis Beacon teaches typing. Man, that was back
Yeah.
in the day.
That was one of the courses my parents made me take in high school, and I'm glad I took it because it helped a
Yeah.
lot. Yeah.
This is good. Another one that I have on this list, which I don't think it's like a huge like mistake. I think it's just like a learning curve, but it has listed here like not understanding async await code, which I think is important, but that
That
is a
comes later too,
slightly
though.
more advanced like JavaScript topic, and I don't think you're gonna just like understand that from the
Well, I
beginning. I
think that
mean,
goes back to those larger concepts, though, like understanding the difference between synchronous versus asynchronous programming, what it means. Like those are concepts to understand that then you can find out how to apply them, you know?
I have
yeah,
I have another common mistake.
yeah.
Trying to become an expert in HTML or CSS
Yeah.
or JavaScript before moving on to frameworks.
Yeah.
Yes, I agree. I yeah, I totally agree. I think you just really need the basics there, and then you learn most of that while you're in the framework. I wanted to say to Randall a point. I don't think you wasted your money as long as you find the value in it. I think,
Yeah.
having AI, again, this is we're generalizing here, and I know you're joking in that comment, but I
We're
just,
also thinking of people just starting out learning too, because
yeah,
I think that's really where like
like
these holdups can really be a detriment.
I would actually argue this, Randall, and I think, Cursor Pro is an excellent tool for you because of where you are at your level. For the average beginner developer, I think in a lot of ways, any AI that integrates directly with VS Code is actually a handicap and will make you slower and learn less because you become dependent on it. What I do like is if you use an outside tool like ChatGPT, because it sort of forces you to explain what's going on, and you don't just get like one of the things that I see a lot inside the incubator that we try to curb very quick is when we have like people have like Copilot or AI assist, because what happens is you start typing and then all of a sudden it generates like grayed out code, and it leads to one of two things: either it makes everything look very confusing and hard to debug, or two, you just press tab and then you never learn what you actually coded. So to me, when you're first starting out, AI is actually, you know, like a crutch. You should not use it, especially inside of VS Code. You want to use ChatGPT? I use it all the time for coding. You absolutely should, but yeah, I don't think, but for where you are, when you get to a certain level, AI is like the most powerful thing ever. Because once you understand, this is why we focus too on like you understand the bigger concepts, because now we have all these tools who can do most of the typing for us. So like if you understand how to put together an amazing, SaaS app or something, then let AI do the coding and you just explain it, right?
Yeah.
But you have to be the one to like make sure it's all working. So,
Yeah.
yeah.
Well, that's where you have to have the skills and the knowledge to put it together and make sure it works right. I mean, that's the thing at the end of the day.
Yeah. Yeah, I
Good
I
list.
understand that Cursor is in a different panel. I still don't think it's beneficial for junior developers because I think it's just too much in your VS Code. You should really be focusing on learning the stuff, and like AI should be in this like a backup, right? It should be like a mentor. It should be sort of like, being in the incubator, you have a Telegram group that you can contact somebody 24/7 to get an answer. That's how you should use ChatGPT. Like, not, hey, can everybody in the group code this for me? It should be like, hey, I'm stuck here. Can somebody help me?
It's cool.
We're
We
not
always
on a
get on a tangent.
tangent.
It's fine. No, this is good too, I think, anyway.
Yeah.
Nice.
Anything else you guys have?
That's
I
about
think,
10.
it's good. Yeah, it's a good list.
That's yeah, there's probably like 30. There's plenty more, and if you guys want to know more, use some AI. Ask ChatGPT, what are 10 mistakes? Um,
Oh, here's another mistake.
okay.
Not joining a coding group soon enough.
Yeah, that's a good one. I have something to add to that too. So I think joining a community is very important. Obviously, you guys are here, so you're in the Code Noobs community. I mean, the reality is this. I think most people who want to become a developer want to do it extremely fast, like yesterday. And I think that's one thing that I think many junior developers get caught up on is their time horizon is just too short, right? You want to go out there and you want to compete against somebody who's been a software developer for 10 or 15 years and make, somewhat equivalent money as them. It's just not a reality. Like these people have dedicated 10 years of their life to this. You're not going to get to that same level in 6 months. It's just not a reality. Like you can get close to it, but so with that said, I think one of the best things you can do to move faster is join a community because you have people to support you and keep you accountable, answer questions for you, give you sort of the next step, right? Because there is a very complicated journey to become a software developer. So, I mean, I see it every day. You see people in the group like Charles, who's like, "Hey, I don't know what I should be focusing on." Cool. Here's the next step for
But
you.
that's the thing,
Or
when you have that though, you can get really far in under a year. I mean,
totally,
but
yeah,
and then you can spend your time even refining that after. But I think that's it. Like, it does. You gotta have it's not gonna be in 7 days like these books say and stuff. It's not gonna
yeah,
be in 24 hours. And understanding that's important because there's gonna be frustrations too.
And it
yeah,
provides
and
accountability because we've all had that time where like we didn't code for a week.
Oh
And
God,
then
yeah.
we have
yeah.
our weekly check-ins and we're like, what did we do this week? I kind of did nothing. And it's like,
Yeah.
oh, I better get back on top of it. And it's
It's like
actually a really good
friendly
reminder and it
competition.
brings you back
Yeah.
to it. Because if you're doing it by yourself, 1 week turns into 2 weeks, turns into a month, turns into you
But
just give
it's
up
Totally.
well,
coding.
it's also helpful. Not only is it a reminder, but it's also like I remember when we first started meeting. Like it was also nice because like we all had bad weeks where we didn't code because stuff happened.
Yeah.
But it's like not only was it a reminder to keep coding, but it also you guys always help make you feel better too. Like right, like it's
Yeah.
okay.
Hmm.
Like just get back into it. Like a week off, everybody needs a break sometimes. But like you
And
don't
you
want
get
to
to
take
learn a
a
whole bunch
month.
of cool stuff. Like
Yeah,
Yeah.
everybody learns different things, and so getting to share that is really cool.
Yeah.
it is
It's pretty
awesome.
sweet. I want to add one more thing which goes along with this. And I think this is actually one of the bigger mistakes of junior developers and one that I know I made and I'm pretty sure both of you made. And that
I
is,
never make mistakes.
well, that was your
Randy's
I
mistake.
never
perfect.
admitted to making a mistake.
That is giving up too quickly. I
Yeah,
think that is a
yeah.
huge one because, and it comes from this same thing because we're constantly told like you can become a developer in 2 weeks, and and then you start learning it and your eyes glaze over because you're like, whoa, there was a lot more here than they made it
Well, it's
sound
also
like.
all the stories were sold of this 18-year-old now is a billionaire. And it's
Right.
like, well, okay, like, yeah,
Yeah.
that's a very large outlier,
It's
Like,
Exactly.
frustrating because it takes a lot longer than you think. Like when I started
Yeah.
learning hacking, I thought that, 3 to 5 years in, I would be a master and still not there. And it's just like, it takes a long
because
freaking
they keep
time to
coming out
learn
with
this
stuff
stuff.
too,
Yeah.
though.
Yeah.
Also, I think there's something that you don't realize too is like if I showed you your current self today, like if I showed your past self, your current self, you'd be like,
Oh yeah.
that's an expert hacker, right? Like if you were looking at where you were today, maybe if it was a different person, you'd be like, wow, that person is a really good hacker. Like, oh my God, I really want to do that. But because we're always ourselves, we don't see the progress, right? We see the slight progress every day, but it's very hard to compare where we were a long
Well,
time ago to where we are now. And that's another reason why the community is great because you get to see other people in the group and where they were. We get to see it a lot because, we see everybody along their whole journey. And you can see like amazing progress, but
well,
it does take
self-comparisons
longer
are
than you
good too, though,
probably
too. I
think.
think like,
Yeah.
reminding yourself like, oh, it's been 3 months. Where was I 3 months ago in the past? How much have I advanced? That's a good way also to kind of help gauge your progress too.
Yeah.
Nice. All right.
So, yeah, with that, thank you guys for watching today. if you do want a community, if you're looking for a group of people and a group of mentors who are here to help you, we have something for you. It's called the Web Dev Incubator, and it is our private inner circle community. It's the people that we love the most in this group because they get to share every Tuesday and every Saturday with us live on stream. They hang out with us on Zoom. We code projects together. We keep each other accountable. And we just support each other on this journey because the truth of the matter is this is a long and pretty tough journey, but it pays off well. So it's totally worth it, right? I'd rather do this than work at McDonald's. I'll tell you that for sure. And if that's what you want, if you want a life where you're happy and you have freedom and you get to do what you want and choose how your day
Or
goes,
like what you do.
yeah, or just like what you do, then you may want to become a software developer. And if you want to get there faster, this is your way to do it. This is how you're going to basically go from I'm learning to code to I know how to build websites and get paid doing it. That's literally what we do inside the program. You can ask all the people who are in the comments here. They're all, not all of them, but many of them are in the program already. They're kicking ass. They're getting clients. They're getting paid. And they're learning a shitload along the way. So if that's you, if you want to become a software developer, don't do this alone. You're going to take way longer. And I promise you that tech moves faster than you can learn to code on your own.
Yeah,
Like, this
it
is
does.
really
It's
the
very fast.
reality is like, by the time you learn how to code, tech will be way down the road, way past you. So you really do need a support system, whether that's, inside the Facebook group. That's awesome. Feel free to use everything posts in here. But if you really want to like up your game, you need to join a real community. And that's what we have inside the incubator. If you're interested in joining, you can just go to codenoobs.io. There's all the information there. You can read everything up there. And if you're like still curious, if there's not enough information there, feel free to book a free action call with us. It's just a way for you to get a little bit of free mentoring, us to get to know you where you are on your journey and see if the web dev incubator is a good fit for you. There's no commitment. There's no nothing. It's really just a free call with free mentoring, and an opportunity for us to get to know you, you to ask us questions. And if you want to join, awesome. If not, no big deal. Either way, feel free to check out all the information at codenoobs.io. We have a couple different programs on there. Yeah. And you guys have anything else you want to share today?
Yeah, I just want to share one of my favorite things about the incubator is seeing the new people coming to an incubator
Yeah.
and see them, listen to them saying, I hate my job. I want to be a
Yeah.
developer, but I'm not sure if I have what it takes. I don't think I can do it. I don't know how to do it. And then like weeks later, they're already getting paid. They already have clients and they're already like
Yeah.
making some serious uh,
Yeah.
successes with their web development career. So it is something that it's mind-blowingly awesome to be able to watch it. And if you're on the fence about this type of thing, you've got nothing to lose.
Yeah. I actually was thinking about that this week because it is I was literally thinking about like pretty much exactly what you just said, which is it's amazing to me the people who come into the incubator, most of the people who come in already have well more than enough skills to start getting paid as a developer. Like many of them, right? Whether that's with no code solutions or with code solutions. But there's one piece that they're missing, and that is like the confidence and the support to actually go out and do it and like the kick in the butt. And that's what this program is. Like we're not here to, it's not a boot camp. It's not like we're some strict curriculum or anything like that. We're a support community. We're here to make sure that you find the path to your success. And so I think many of the people who are watching right now are in the group who are like, I don't know if I can be a developer. You have everything it takes and you have enough to start charging people for that. We see it in the group every single day. I mean, there's people who come into the group and they're like, I don't know if I can even be a software developer. And then a few weeks later, they're like, I just found my first client and he paid me money.
Well, and
Can I
then they
have some
have the
help
whole,
building this? And then we
yeah, they have
build
the
it,
whole
right?
community to help, and that's the
Yeah.
big thing too, is that you're not on your own, which helps a lot too.
Yeah. So if this is you, if that's you, Christian Rap in the comments there, I see you saying that's me. Go to codenoobs.io. You can sign up directly for Web Dev Incubator, or you can, jump on a call with us and see if it's the right fit for you.
Nice.
And with that, thank you guys for tuning in. As always, happy Saturday. If you are in the Web Dev Incubator, we'll see you in about 15 minutes. Just check out the Telegram group for the link. And with that, Nice
Later,
to
fellas.
see you guys. Have a good week,
Have a
and
good
we'll
week.
see you next week.